Welcome to a new episode of the Genius Program. The American president receives a letter from the scientist Albert Einstein, telling him about a major problem. In 1938, scientists discovered nuclear fission. When elements like uranium are targeted, their nuclei become unstable and split, releasing massive amounts of energy. This fission energy can be used to create bombs, and that was a major problem. This was the start of the nuclear arms race between the Allies, where each side wanted to build the atomic bomb first. Meanwhile, during World War II, soldiers fought on the battlefield, but scientists in different countries were racing to develop the atomic bomb. The research efforts in the Allied countries were scattered across the world. In America, Canada, and Britain, each country had its own scientists working separately. Everything changed in 1941 when America joined the war after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. In 1942, the US decided to focus its scientific efforts on building the atomic bomb, forming the Manhattan Project. The project brought together over 100,000 scientists from different backgrounds to work on a single goal: building the atomic bomb. The project was named after Manhattan, New York, where the first office was opened, though the actual work took place in remote, secret locations, such as the desert in New Mexico. The American scientist Robert Oppenheimer led the team. Oppenheimer was a strange figure, known for his love of philosophy and languages. He even learned Dutch in just 6 weeks to give a lecture in the Netherlands. However, Oppenheimer once tried to poison his teacher with a poisoned apple, possibly because the teacher didn't appreciate his talents. Despite this odd behavior, Oppenheimer's genius in physics helped him lead the scientists at the Manhattan Project. Many of these scientists were refugees who had escaped Nazi Germany. On July 16, 1945, the first successful nuclear test was conducted, called Trinity, in the New Mexico desert. When Oppenheimer saw the explosion, he quoted a line from the Hindu scriptures, saying, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." This marked a moment of victory, but also one of profound sadness for many of the scientists involved. After the test, there was a great debate about whether the bomb should be used. Some believed it was necessary to end the war quickly, while others felt it was too destructive. On August 6, 1945, the US dropped the first atomic bomb, Little Boy, on the Japanese city of Hiroshima, killing 237,000 people. 3 days later, another bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, killing 75,000 people. Japan surrendered soon after, ending World War II. Many people argue that the atomic bomb was a necessary evil to end the war. However, others, including some of the scientists who worked on the Manhattan Project, believed that the bomb should not have been used in this way. They argued that Japan would eventually surrender, and that the bomb could have been demonstrated in a safe place without causing so much destruction. Robert Oppenheimer, the leader of the Manhattan Project, later regretted his involvement in creating such a devastating weapon. He argued that the responsibility for its use lay with the government, not the scientists. He also believed that nuclear weapons should only be used for peaceful purposes, such as generating electricity or treating cancer, and that future efforts should focus on preventing such weapons from being used again. The story didn't end there. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its first atomic bomb, which made the US feel threatened. This led to the development of the hydrogen bomb, which is even more powerful than the atomic bomb. The hydrogen bomb relies on nuclear fusion, which produces much more energy than fission. The development of nuclear weapons continued throughout the Cold War, with both the US and the Soviet Union racing to develop more powerful bombs. Many scientists, including Oppenheimer, later regretted their roles in the arms race, as they saw the devastating potential of nuclear weapons. The Manhattan Project transformed the atomic bomb from a scientific discovery into a powerful weapon. However, it also created a balance of power, where the threat of mutual destruction prevented countries from using nuclear weapons. Today, scientists continue to work on peaceful uses for nuclear technology, while also warning about the dangers of nuclear weapons. In this context, we can say that the scientists who participated in developing the atomic bomb in the Manhattan Project did not anticipate the consequences of their inventions. While most of them believed that the atomic bomb would remain a terrifying weapon used only in very specific situations, developments in nuclear technology contributed to what became known as nuclear deterrence. Nuclear deterrence, a concept that emerged after World War II, refers to the idea that nuclear weapons could prevent major wars between great powers. Countries realized that any nuclear attack on another nation would lead to mutual destruction. As a result, it became unlikely that nuclear-armed states would use their weapons against each other, as the consequences would be devastating for both sides. Despite this deterrence, there were still concerns about the use of nuclear weapons in regional conflicts or by non-nuclear countries. In fact, this balance of power contributed to the Cold War strategies between the United States and the Soviet Union, as each nation sought to maintain its nuclear capabilities in the face of the other, leading to an ongoing nuclear arms race. Many of the scientists who worked on the atomic bomb, such as Oppenheimer, expressed regret after seeing the results of their creations in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. While they felt they had fulfilled their national and scientific duties, the destruction of so many human lives made them reconsider the benefits and risks of nuclear weapons. In the end, it can be said that nuclear technology played a pivotal role in contemporary history. It not only changed the course of warfare but also contributed to the development of many peaceful applications, such as nuclear energy and radiation therapy. However, at the same time, nuclear weapons remain a persistent threat to humanity, making it essential for international efforts to continue reducing their proliferation and preventing their use in the future. The development of nuclear weapons and the subsequent arms race left a lasting impact on global politics, shaping international relations and military strategies for decades. The world saw the rise of organizations such as the United Nations and various arms control agreements, such as the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, which aimed to limit the spread of nuclear weapons and encourage disarmament. Yet, despite these efforts, the presence of nuclear weapons continues to be a source of tension and fear. Many countries still maintain nuclear arsenals, and regional conflicts or political instability can sometimes reignite fears of nuclear war. The idea of mutually assured destruction, MAD, which was central to Cold War diplomacy, persists as a deterrent, but the possibility of accidental or unauthorized use of nuclear weapons remains a serious concern. Moreover, the legacy of the Manhattan Project and the scientists involved also highlights the ethical dilemma surrounding scientific discovery. These individuals made groundbreaking contributions to physics, but their work also created weapons of mass destruction. This raises questions about the responsibility of scientists for the consequences of their work, especially when it is used for violent purposes. As global security continues to evolve, the challenge remains to ensure that nuclear weapons are never used again in warfare and that the potential for disaster is minimized. The lessons learned from history, especially the horrific consequences of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, must serve as a constant reminder of the devastating power of nuclear weapons and the need for ongoing vigilance, diplomacy, and cooperation among nations to secure a peaceful world for future generations. The topic discusses the development and use of the atomic bomb, with a focus on how scientists, especially those involved in the Manhattan Project, contributed to its creation. The text reflects on the complex relationship between scientific discoveries and ethical decisions, particularly in the context of war. It mentions the efforts of scientists like Wernher von Braun, a Nazi rocket scientist, who later helped the United States during the Cold War in missile and space technology. Despite his past with the Nazis, his expertise was vital for the US space program. In 1957, after the Soviet Union launched the Sputnik satellite, the United States formed NASA in 1958, aiming to compete in space exploration. Von Braun led the Saturn rocket program, which eventually helped the US land astronauts on the Moon in 1969. The text also talks about a controversial suggestion by an American professor of law to store nuclear launch codes inside a capsule embedded in a volunteer's body, instead of keeping them in a briefcase with the president. The idea was to create a more human way of launching nuclear weapons, where the president would have to make a personal and violent decision to access the codes. There's a philosophical discussion about moral choices and how scientific knowledge can sometimes lead to decisions that conflict with human values. A thought experiment from 2020 describes a scenario where a person must choose between saving one individual or 5 people in danger. This mirrors the ethical decisions faced by leaders during war, such as the US President Truman's decision to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The text concludes by emphasizing that scientific knowledge comes with a cost and responsibility. After World War II and the dropping of the atomic bomb, the scientific community realized that knowledge must be handled carefully, with ethics and humanity in mind, to prevent future tragedies. The lesson is that science, without conscience and moral consideration, can lead to disastrous outcomes. The text also explores the consequences of the atomic bomb's use in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It mentions the emotional and ethical struggles faced by the scientists who created the bomb. Some of them, like Robert Oppenheimer, were shocked by the destructive power they helped unleash. The experiment they conducted, known as the Trinity test, showed them the terrifying reality of their work. When the bomb exploded, it wasn't just a scientific achievement, it was a moment of deep moral conflict for many of the scientists involved. The question arises whether it is possible for scientists to be purely ethical when working with dangerous knowledge, and if they are willing to accept the responsibility for the consequences of their discoveries. While some scientists, like von Braun, moved on to work for other nations, others, like those in the Manhattan Project, had to face the tragic reality of the bomb's use. The text compares the development of the atomic bomb to other scientific advancements throughout history. It discusses how knowledge, while potentially beneficial, can also lead to destruction if not handled responsibly. The lesson from these events is clear: scientific progress must be coupled with ethical responsibility. Without it, the pursuit of knowledge can lead to tragic outcomes, as demonstrated by the bomb's use in war. At the end, the author stresses that humanity must learn from the mistakes of the past and ensure that future scientific developments are guided by strong ethical principles. The idea is that we should never repeat the mistakes of the past, especially when it comes to using scientific knowledge for harmful purposes. Ethical considerations must always accompany scientific advancements to avoid repeating history's darkest moments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and wait for the next video.